Well, it's the last makeup video I'll be doing for MOvember, and for this particular video I'm going to pull some more resources out of Facing the Shadow by Dr Carnes, and I'm going to focus on the Arousal Template. Partners, as their addicts come into recovery, are really interested in this. What is it about? They hear about it in the literature and on betrayal trauma websites. So Arousal Template is one's psychosexual history that established patterns and connections which have formed neurochemical and emotional templates related to sexuality. So I'm going to read and pull a few things out of Carnes's book, but we will look at what contributes to the arousal template. So it's going to be your biology. Some of our desired parameters are simply given by genetic encoding. Family, parental interaction with the child and the parents with each other has a profound effect on a child. How you see affection and sensuality, connection in a family system. Early sexual experiences, child abuse can have a profound effect on the arousal template. Adults who were trauma victims often repeat their abuse because the abuse has become eroticized. It can be part of our sexual history, personal experiences that shape one's sexual beliefs and behaviors, just things you come across or experience. And our sex addiction history, acting out behaviors that become obsessive. So over time, you'll see people's arousal will shift and change through pornography, sexual attraction. As the addiction takes hold, like getting access and privacy, all of a sudden we're doing behaviors that are way outside of our arousal template, original or initial arousal template, causing all sorts of distress, especially if a heterosexual person moves into same-sex attraction behavior. So I'm just going to, in the spirit of this, feed through a couple of things Carnes has got on this. Remember that arousal is a physical phenomenon. As such, it will operate with the same processes that your body uses. For example, your immune system scans for threatening microorganisms that fit the pattern of a dangerous bacteria, and when discovered, it immediately organizes an attack on such cells. Likewise, your brain constantly searches for patterns that are familiar in order to make sense of them. A sexual scan occurs to see if a pattern fits. That pattern is your arousal template. The arousal template for each person can be quite unique and specific. And he goes on to talk about some just examples here. I'm not going to put that sort of material in this today. But he does go on to say how an arousal template is formed. So the arousal template can be discerned in children between the ages of 5 and 8. It is formed from a variety of factors: family messages, early sexual experiences, church influences, child abuse, the media influences, stories and images from magazines, television, movies, and the internet. These flow together to create an internal process called sexual arousal. Part of this template is formed intentionally by church, culture, and family, while other parts are formed quite accidentally. In addition, the template builds on preferences already determined by our genetic code. So, whether we like tall or short, blondes or redheads, these and all our other preferences are determined by a mix of physiology and cultural-based learning. As we move through adolescence and into adulthood, the arousal template becomes our guide for what we feel to be erotic. And much of this template remains at an unconscious level. So, your arousal template can change. Events early in life have a profound impact on the emerging sexual self. Online sexual behavior, however, has taught us that adults can experience significant change in their arousal template under hypnotic influence of electronic sex. In fact, people can rapidly form new obsessions that become so fixed that they have power over early childhood experiences. This fact is important because for many years we believed that the arousal templates were firmly fixed and unalterable. Now we realize they can be supplemented or even replaced. The downside is that the template can still lead to obsession. The upside is that change is possible. The fundamental fact that your arousal template may have undergone profound changes as a result of your sex addiction. The fundamental fact is that your arousal template may have undergone profound changes as a result of your sex addiction. Knowing how such change happens can significantly affect your ability to remain relapse-free. Disrupting the addiction cycle starts with understanding the pattern-seeking characteristics of your body and how your arousal template was formed. In so doing, you can begin to broaden your sexual stimuli to introduce new sexual options that are more functional and healthy. The key to recovery is learning how to separate distortions in your neuro pathways for the true expressions of your sexuality. In order to start that process, you will need to explore your arousal template in more detail. So templates include a variety of objects and situations. Almost anything can become part of an arousal template. For example, a child growing up in a rural area with no running water might have snuck up behind an outhouse to peer into and watch female family members urinate. Curiosity and arousal could then become connected to urination. As an adult, that person might view urination as a cue for arousal. Pornography of women urinating or spy cams in restrooms or prostitutes willing to give golden showers could all become extensions of that original scenario or story. Similarly, when they were adolescents, some men became fascinated with girls who smoke. As adults, they seek restaurants or parks near high schools where they could watch girls smoke, and they might drive by areas where girls smoke. They might also take a shortcut by going online to seek out the many websites dedicated to girls who are not necessarily nude smoking. Templates include a variety of feelings. And what I might do is just put this slide here so you can follow these themes. So, as objects, sensations, and scenarios become eroticized, so do feelings that accompany them. Many psychological experiments have consistently shown that people were viewed as more attractive when the subjects perceived fear or risk, either to themselves or that person. Fear and risk is a well-documented neurochemical escalator of the sexual experience. So is pain. Many female victims of violent childhood sexual abuse report that as adults they are unable to be orgasmic unless their male partner is hurting them. Many traumatized female clients have told me that they could not even masturbate unless they put astringent or abrasive materials in their vagina. They simply could not stimulate themselves without the pain. Consider the successful scientist who told of a violent childhood. He can remember his father battering his mother so badly that he heard a body hit the wall in the next room. He would masturbate and comfort himself in his anxiety. He also had a problem wetting the bed and defecating in his night clothes until he was 6. As an adult, he found fear erotic, any kind of fear, and he would compulsively seek high-risk sex. Even his own feces and urine were highly arousing to him. To use the clinical term, coprophilia hardly captures the full picture of what happened to this man. Behind that, what many would call perverse behavior is a severely traumatized child. Eroticized anger. And I did do a whole section on eroticized anger, so I'm going to ask you to for that material, go to that video in this MOvember campaign. So what I'm going to pull into though is the preparing for the arousal template exercises. So what we do in therapy is we in looking at these different components of what arousal templates sort of feature, we go through and help folks identify what their preferences are. So the next task is to detail the components of your arousal template. Beyond fantasies, specific triggers for arousal usually fall into some common categories. They're listed up there. I'm not going to read them exactly the same order, but you'll get the gist. So we look at eroticized feelings such as rage, anger, shame, and pain. Situations or places such as hotel rooms, shopping centers, parks, certain parts of town, specific cities or countries, beaches. Sensations, sounds, starting up at your computer, smells, certain perfumes, visual cues, type of dress or outfit. Objects such as automobiles, computer keyboards, sex toys, school uniforms, lingerie. Processes such as smoking, urination, violence, degradation or humiliation. Body types, parts or characteristics including builds, shapes, muscles, wrinkles, stretch marks. Partner characteristics, age, marital status, personality. For example, vulnerable, hurting woman, an unreachable, elegant woman, unavailable men. Culture, such as Catholic girls, Asian women, African American, Hispanic gay men, etc. And I put a whole little sign on culture in a minute. Courtship stages and beliefs, obsessions about parts of courtship, dysfunctional courtship beliefs, women tease, men only want sex. So these following exercises help us explore these different categories and pay attention to how you feel when you think how you feel and what you think as you realistically assess what arouses you. So it goes through all those areas and gets you to write down your own experiences and then start to look at, where was risk, where certain situations and what made them so powerful. And you go through and get all the data that you need. And then in the end, look at sort of writing up an arousal map that sort of shows the different points. Now, I probably wished I'd put this up in front, but I'm going to probably try and just show here's an example of someone writing their choice points and how the arousal template starts to guide them in the way that they move forward. And this is what you do with a therapist. So this will be the last little piece that I read just on your arousal template. So you're making the choice points explicit. The arousal template is highly individualized. After doing this work, can you see how many different aspects are involved in your acting out behavior? What is important now is to understand your template. Remember that your arousal template is a way to describe how each of us makes decisions. If a specific stimuli occurs, what will your next choice most likely be? If there are two options, how do you decide which one to take? Then what happens next? These questions designate a series of choice points that become part of your arousal template. For example, when a woman who sees an old lover who is dangerous to her, she has several choices. She can walk away from him, she can contact him and then walk away, or she can agree to meet. Consider the man who drives by a strip club and finds himself stimulated. He also has a number of choices. He can turn around and go in. He can drive back and forth until he is so stimulated he goes in. He can cruise past other clubs. He can go straight to an erotic massage provider. At any of these points, he can also go home or approach his partner for sex. Or while at home, he can go straight to the website where he can have women strip for him. If he goes to the website, there is a certain type of woman is he looking for? Or is there a certain type of woman he's looking for? If he ends up at a strip club, there is a certain type of woman or behavior is he looking for there? If he approaches his partner, what makes that erotic? So that choice point, sort of, we start to map that out, and it helps. No matter the scenario, the important step is to make the choice points explicit. In business, athletics, and science, we call this structure an expert system. The physical actions of the world-class athletes and performers seem so easy and effortless. These people, however, have actually created an expert system of decision-making that has become unconscious. By making their choice points explicit, they can improve their performance. I think an awesome example of this is that Alex Honnold, who climbed free soloed in Yellowstone National Park, won that Oscar for that documentary and he mapped every single move. He knew all of his choices in advance in a sequence. So when he climbed that, because falling one wrong move, he was dead. So this is what Carnes is referring to, how those folks use those systems. Every addiction, whether to drugs, alcohol, gambling, or compulsive spending, involves choice points and decisions that continually intensify its power. Shame, pleasure, and risk have prevented you from understanding yourself and limited your ability to get help from others. Even so, you are an expert in your sex addiction. Now that you have completed all the work in this chapter, the task before you is to become aware of your expert system, the choice points you face, and the resulting decisions you make. There are several good reasons for you to do this. First, understanding how you make these decisions will enable you to change your decisions. Sex addicts usually experience their bodies as being driven by forces beyond their control. By recognizing and becoming aware of your choice points, you can create a psychological distance you need to see that you have choices. Your behavior is not inevitable. If you recognize the neuropathways involved, you will understand that addictive arousal is about wiring and templates. Second, carrying out this task will lay the foundation for reclaiming your sexuality over the long term. Remember that your arousal templates have been vandalized, courtship has been distorted, and the addictive cycles and addictive cycles have taken over. The great irony for many recovering people is that despite incredible amounts of sexual activity, they have really not experienced their sexuality. Rather, they have only experienced their distortions. Recovery literally means reclaiming what has been lost or taken. By stepping back from yourself and looking at how the expert system of your addiction works, you can decide what you want to keep, what is missing, and what you need to develop. So, I had this culture slide there for before, but I think that one of the things I'd say about culture now is, once upon a time, arousal was largely locational. Before we became cyber citizens and had dating apps where we could date someone from anywhere around the world, we really were limited to the culture we were in. I would say now we are part of a cyber citizenship, and that we can be triggered in a whole variety of ways. That means arousal can be really quite distracted and disorientated really early because of access to the web. So this was the last of my MOvember videos. I've made it in at 11:56 p.m. So there's a little process after midnight, but I feel like I've met my goal. I hope if you've watched me this far and got this far into it, that you've enjoyed the videos. I do enjoy making them. They're useful tools for my clients and anyone that comes across them. Please pass them on. If you can donate, fantastic. If you know someone that grew a Mo, donate to them. And all the videos of all the tools will be linked through my YouTube page, which you can access on Steve Stokes Counselling and Consulting. And with that, I will say good night.